Okay, so 1.1 is the first official section in your book. Your textbook is, you can access it through WebAssign. When you literally click on the class, there's a little thing on the bottom right that says e-textbook, okay? And that's where you can access your whole book. So if you prefer to, get some supplemental stuff from a textbook, it's there, okay? But everything that you need to know from this class will either be in a note or some sort of practice or WebAssign at some point. You shouldn't have to go digging through the book for content. So this is hopefully another day where you're like, oh, I got this. This stuff is all stuff I remember. If it's not, we're reviewing it for that reason, okay, just in case. So slope of a line is how steep a line is. We will eventually, like the AP test refers to this as rate of change instead of slope, because it can be on a line or it can be on a quadratic or it can be on other things. So eventually we're going to start to switch our verbiage to things like rate of change. But with lines, they call it slope, and it's how steep the line is. It is the change in y and the change in x, and if you are given two coordinate points, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The symbol or variable for slope is m. So in your equations, y equals mx plus b, the m is your slope. There are 4 types of slope. As I move from left to right, it is increasing, then it is positive. If it is falling, as you move from left to right, it is negative. If it is a vertical line, then there is no slope or undefined slope. And the equation of a vertical line is an x equals a number with no y. So if I said x equals 3, immediately you would have to know that that means that this is a vertical line. It's running through point where the x is 3, and the slope is undefined. And then a horizontal line, the slope is 0. It is a y equals a number, like for example, y equals 2. That would be your horizontal line. So you need to know y equals without an x means that it's horizontal. If it's horizontal, the slope is 0. This is all stuff we remember, right? Yes? Okay. All right, the 3 types of equations that you'll use when you're dealing with lines are the sloped intercept, which is y equals mx plus b. M is your slope and b is your y-intercept. If it asks you for the actual intercept, you're putting in coordinate point form, so it would be 0, comma b. The point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The point is your x1, y1, and the m is your slope. So something in slope-intercept would be like y equals 3x plus 2. Something in point slope would be y minus 2 equals 3 times x plus 1. That would be point slope. And then the last one is your standard form. And that is ax plus by equals c. So you'll never plug in information into standard form, but it could give you an equation in standard form to get information out of, or it could ask you to find the equation of the line and put it in standard form. So to find the equation of a line, I would pick either the slope-intercept or the point slope, and then I would solve it so that, or move things around so that it is in standard form. Standard form means the x and y are on the same side, the constants on the other. It means that they're all whole numbers, so no fractions, no decimals. And the x must be positive. The y can be negative, the constant can be negative, but the x must be positive. Yep.
Can you go back to the first one?
All right, so this one just says find the slope of the line using A, the graph line, and B, points from the graph. So you'd be expected to be able to do either, okay? So if I'm counting from the graph line, I'm literally counting rise over run. And you could pick to start at either point and then work your way to the other. It doesn't matter which one. So if I'm going from the one on the right, the 4, 0 to the one on the left, my rise is up 2. And my run is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, which would be -4. So positive 2 over -4, and we always reduce. So this is -1/2. If you had counted the other way, my rise would have been down 2, so it would have been -2. My run would have been +4, and I would still end up with that -1/2. The negative can be in the top, out in the front, it doesn't matter. Yep.
Why is the 4 negative and not the 2?
So the way I did it, I went up and left. You could also go down and right. The down would be the 2, and the right would be the 4. It's still the same. Okay, now from points, so let's just say they gave you the coordinate points instead of giving you the graph. This would have been 0, 2. This would have been 4, 0. So if I did my x2, or so my y2 minus y1, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I could call either one the 1s or the 2s. It doesn't matter as long as I'm consistent. So if I make these my 1s and these my 2s, then I get 2 minus 0 over 0 minus 4, 2 over -4, which is -1/2. All right, example 2 says find the slope and the y-intercept and then graph. So we're given the equation. If it's already in slope-intercept like A, obviously it's easy to grab it. If it's in standard form like B, then we have a couple options. So we'll start with A. My M is what? -3, which means my rise and run is -3 over +1 or 3 over -1. You could pick either one. And then my B is 2, which means my y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay, so then when I graph it, I'm going to start at my y-intercept, which is 0, 2. And I'm going to go up my run and over, so up my rise and then over my run. So I can either go down 3 into the right one, 1, 2, 3 to the right one, or I can go up 3 and to the left one, okay? Either way, it forms the same line. And sometimes you're going to have to do one over the other just based on the space on your graph. So sometimes you got to go in one direction instead of the other. On WebAssign, when you do this, you'll drop a point and then you'll drop the other point. So you'll pick the line tool, you'll drop 2 points, and it will draw the line for you, okay? Again, if it's glitchy or frustrating, then you draw it by hand on the PDF. And don't worry about the green check. All right, so for B, in order, you actually have 2 choices. One is to get this into slope-intercept form, so solve for y. So I would subtract the 3x to y equals -3x plus 6, and then divide by 2. Y equals -3/2 x plus 3. And then from there, my M is -3/2, which is my slope, and my B is 3, which means my y-intercept is 0, 3. Then I go to the graph. 0, 3 is my y-intercept, and my slope is -3/2. So down 3, 1, 2, 3 to the right 2, or 1, 2, 3 to the left 2. And again, doesn't matter which direction you go. There's your line. All right, the other option for finding slope and y-intercept, there's a shortcut in standard form. In standard form, -a over b is your shortcut for slope. So if I have it in standard form, which this one already is, the a is 3, so it'd be -3 over the b is 2, and that's my slope. And how else could I find a y-intercept? How do you find a y-intercept of any equation? Plug 0 in for x. So I could make it 3 times 0 plus 2 times y equals 6. 2y equals 6 and y equals 3. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. Obviously, if you're finding a y-intercept of anything other than a line, you have to do the way we just did it. But you could also just put it into slope-intercept and then figure it out from there. Yeah.
Did you just put a negative sign in front of A over B because our slope is negative?
That's a shortcut. It's negative a over b. It's always, so you always change the sign on the a, which if it's in standard form, will always be positive. So it will be negative, and then the sign on b is going to determine your slope. Is it going to stay negative or if it will be positive? You're welcome. All right, example 3 says find the equation of the line with the given information. So for A, I'm given slope and a point. You can choose if you plug this into slope-intercept, solve for B, plug it back in, or you can choose if you do point-slope. Honestly, if I'm given point and slope, I tend to do that one, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to show you both ways you get to choose. The first way is I literally am going to plug it into point slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And the m is the given slope, and the point is your x1, y1. So y stays as y. Minus a negative 2 becomes plus 2. Equals your m is negative 3/4. X minus the x1, which is 3. Now I distribute the negative 3/4. I get y plus 2 equals negative 3/4 x. A negative times a negative makes this positive. 3/4 times 3 is 9/4. And then I would subtract the 2. 9/4 minus 2 becomes 8/4, and this is 1/4. And that's my equation in slope-intercept form. We'll talk about what would happen if it asked for standard form in a minute. If it doesn't say standard, you're assuming slope-intercept. So unless it specifically says standard or point slope, you always assume it's y equals mx plus b at the end. All right, the other option is to plug it into y equals mx plus b. So in y equals mx plus b, y is negative 2, m is negative 3/4, x is 3, and we're going to solve for b. So I get negative 2 equals negative 9/4 plus b, add the 9/4. I'd get negative 8/4 plus 9/4, which is 1/4. And then I have to take and plug back in the m, which is negative 3/4, and the b, which is 1/4. In my opinion, there's not that big of a difference between those two methods. You get to choose. Yep. Sure. Questions? All right, so if B says passes through negative 8,1 and negative 8,7, what's different about this one? It doesn't give me the slope. How do I find the slope? Good. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And again, doesn't matter which ones you pick as the ones or the twos, as long as you're consistent. So from here, I get 7 minus 1 over negative 8 minus a negative 8, which becomes negative 8 plus 8. And I end up with 6 over 0. What happens when we divide by 0? Undefined. So what kind of line has slope that's undefined? A vertical. And a vertical is x equals or y equals? X equals. Look at your coordinate points. If you accidentally said y equals, how would you know which one to pick, right? Something would be wrong. X equals, they're both the same. If you catch that from the beginning, you save yourself the work. If the x's are the same or the y's are the same, that's going to determine if it's a vertical or horizontal line.
Would we still have to find out the work, or?
No. I mean, unless it specifically said find the slope, find the y-intercept, and the equation. If it did, obviously, then you're looking for those parts. But if it just said find the equation, no.
And then, never mind.
Okay. All right, so what happens if it said find the equation in standard form? I'm going to go back to the first example. If I get to y equals negative 3/4 x plus 1/4, and I need it in standard form, first of all, I have to get rid of the fractions. So how would I get rid of a negative 3/4 and a 1/4? Good. If they were different, I'd find the least common denominator. I'd multiply it by that. But they're both the same. So I get 4y equals negative 3x plus 1. So step 1, get rid of the fractions or decimals. If it was decimals, I'd multiply by a power of 10. And then x and y have to be on the same side. So I'm going to move the 3x on to the left. I don't want to move the 4y with the 3x because the 3x is negative. I want the 3x to be positive, so I'm going to move it to the other side. And then x and y are on the same side. No fractions, no decimals, and x is positive. So that would be in standard form. Questions on any of this stuff so far? All right, then we get parallel and perpendicular. So parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. You could see a question that literally gives you the two slopes and says, are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither? You could see a question in which you get the coordinate points and you have to find the slopes. And it says, are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither? And then you'll see at the end where we can apply these into finding the equations of lines. So this one just says determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. If I look at A, first of all, line 1 is not in slope-intercept form, so I can't just grab what's in front of the x, right? What would you have to do first? What do I have to do with the 3 in front of the y before I can figure out? I divide everything by 3. And I end up with y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Now compare your slopes. What's the slope of line 1? 1/3, right? And the slope of line 2? 3. Are they the same? No. Are they opposite reciprocals? No, they're reciprocals but not opposite, right? Which means this would be a case in which they are neither. For B, you're going to find your slope. So I do 9 minus a negative 1 over 5 minus 0. 10 over 5, which is 2. And for line 2, 1 minus 3 over 4 minus 0, negative 2 over 4, negative 1/2. So what's true with these? Perpendicular, which is the upside down T, or perpendicular. Parallel would be the double lines. So if you want to be lazy, feel free to use the symbol, but obviously on WebAssign you'll pick. I think those questions are like multiple choice. Still good? Easy stuff, right? All right, example 5 says write the equation of a line through the given point that is A parallel to and B perpendicular to the given line. So this is a two-part question. The first, we're going to find a line that is parallel to the given line. The B, we're going to find the line that is perpendicular to the given line. So here's my given line. How do I find the slope of that line? Put it in slope-intercept or negative A over B. That's in standard form, so you could do either one. So I could solve it for y, or I could use negative A, which is 3, over B, which is 4. That's the slope of that line. That is the only piece of information I need from that line. I am done with that line. So people like to grab the B from it. They try to use the 7. You're not doing that. The only thing you need from that line is its slope. Then everything else moving forward, you're using the other coordinate point. So that negative 2/3 and 7/8 would be your xy. So if I want to find the equation of a line that's parallel to my original line, what do I do with that slope? What would be true if they're parallel? It's the same. Good. So I'm going to use my slope, which is negative 3/4. And I'm using my point, which is negative 2/3 and 7/8. And you can choose to plug it into point slope or into y equals mx plus b. It's up to you. I'm going to do one of each. So I'm going to plug this one into point slope. So y minus y1 is 7/8 equals negative 3/4. X minus a negative 2/3 becomes plus 2/3. Okay, so now I'm going to distribute the negative 3/4. So y minus 7/8 equals negative 3/4 x. Negative 3/4 times 2/3. I can simplify the 2 into the 4 twice, and the 3's actually cancel. So I'd get positive 1/2. No, negative 1/2. Sorry, that's a negative times a positive. Negative 1/2. And then I want to add the 7/8. And I get y equals negative 3/4 x. This becomes negative 4/8 plus 7/8, or 3/8. So if it just says find the equation, or if it says find the equation in slope-intercept, that's my answer. If it said find the equation in standard form, what do I have to do with that? I have to move the x on the side with the y and get rid of the fraction. So what would I have to multiply by this time? I'd have to multiply by 8. Least common denominator would be 8. So I'd get 8y equals negative 6, because I'd have to multiply by 2, x plus 3, and then I'd move this over here. So standard form would be 6x plus 8y equals 3. But again, pay attention to your instructions. If it says nothing, it's slope-intercept. If it says standard form, that's when you want to move it into standard form. So the perpendicular slope is going to be opposite reciprocal of my given one, which is the positive 4/3. And then I would still use the same point. So I'll do y equals mx plus b this time, but again, you can choose. So y is 7/8. M is 4/3. X is negative 2/3. And b is my unknown. I get 7/8 equals negative 8/9 plus b. And then I would add the 8/9. And I get b equals, I have to change this so they have a like denominator. So this is 64, 72, and then times 9, 63 over 72. And I get 127 over 72. So my b is 127 over 72. My m is 4/3. Now, if I needed to graph that, I would obviously have to convert that into a mixed number. It'd be 1 and something, okay? But on WebAssign, as long as it's reduced, so as long as 127 and 72 are not divisible by the same number, they're not divisible by 2, 3 doesn't go in the numerator, as long as you check to make sure that it can't be reduced, then I would prefer that you just leave it as your improper fraction. It's going to be easier, unless you have to graph it. If you have to graph it, then you have to turn that into mixed number. And if you have to graph something like 1 and 7/8, you're going to approximate where it is. It's not going to be perfect on your WebAssign, okay? But don't get frustrated if you don't hit it exact. Just draw it on Notability. Questions so far? Okay, so I'm putting this on the video just so that it's clear, but we already talked about this on the homework for WebAssign. So first of all, on the module for WebAssign, there's these, which is your WebAssign instructions. So if you're wondering how it's going to get graded or anything like that, it's on the actual module. There's WebAssign shortcuts. So like a dash, just like this guy is going to help tonight because that gives you a fraction. You can also hit the little box of the like formatting box and you can hit the little thing that looks like a fraction. That works too, okay? You need to make sure that you don't have to screenshot each individual question if you want to just do the work. If you want to screenshot the full page and open it in Safari and give yourself the full page of the PDF. You could do that. I don't care. Whatever works the best for you. If you want to split your screen, that's fine too, okay? But you need to, at the end, once you get the results, screenshot them. Every box should be filled. Every box should be visible. So if there's 10 questions, I should see 10 boxes. And the easiest way, it says it here, but the easiest way to do that is to split the screen between two apps, and it will shrink it into one little box. I think it happened once. It was maybe too many last year and you had to do more. The other option is to screenshot or submit each question. Oh, sorry, no, that's different. The other option is to screenshot, slide the box over, and screenshot. So the biggest complaint I got about WebAssign in the beginning was that it lost your progress. If you submit each question as you go, it will always save it. So do number 1, submit. Number 2, submit. Number 3, submit. Then when you're completely done, submit the whole thing. But if you don't submit as you go and then you lose Wi-Fi, which God knows it's been a disaster this week, you will lose that progress and it could generate another question for you. Okay, so don't waste your time. As you go, submit. And then you're going to submit the final thing to Canvas. Yes, I can check both. I can go into WebAssign and see your progress, but I'd prefer not to have to go 2 places. Okay, so you can make it easy on me to grade. So if you're absent, right, and you can't get into the assignment, it won't let you answer it. It will give you the questions, but it won't let you answer it once you pass the due date. If you are absent, you have to go in and you have to click that little thing that says request extension, and it will send me an email. You want to put in the date that it would be due, giving yourself 1 day for each day you're out, and then I have to approve it, okay, and then you can go back in and do it. Do not do this at 11:59 at night and expect me to be checking it. My request is, should you be out tomorrow, let's say, and you come back to school on Monday, by 3 o'clock on Monday, I should see your request extension, okay? By end of school day for me, on Monday, I should see your request extension. Then I'll approve it, and then you'll have the opportunity to do it. And then obviously you'll submit it with your late pass. But that's where you request the extension. Once the assignment is done and it's past the due date, you'll see a little thing like all the way at the top that says view key. It's not in this screenshot, but it will be there. And that's where you can see all the correct answers. Your goal is to be checking that. So like, check your answers. Make sure you know what you're doing. If you didn't understand why you got it wrong, the next day in class I'll say questions on homework. And that's your opportunity to ask, okay? Questions?